Welcome friends to another r/AmITheJerk video. We've got a lot of awesome stories today, and our first one's from Junior Gal 99. Am I the jerk for exposing my fiance after he lied about the gift I got him for his birthday? I'm female 24, my fiance, male 25, comes from a wealthy family, unlike me. His family can be a bit obsessed over looks and status. He's the only child, so his parents spoil him all the time. They got him 2 cars, one at 18 and one at 23 after he graduated. They also bought him the apartment we live in, etc. He told me once that his mom thinks I should consider wearing brand clothes and makeup, especially when attending their family functions, where important people are present. He said he'd pay for everything, but I have a specific style and brand and I'm comfortable with it, but put aside a couple outfits to wear when visiting. For his birthday, they do exaggerate with their celebration, and for his 25th birthday, they reserved a restaurant for the occasion and sent out invitations. I heard that inside the invitations, they included a list of acceptable/expensive gifts to bring. His mom sent me one which had me like, what the freak? I called her and she apologetically said, well, he really wants this. He'll be disappointed if he doesn't get this. I told her it's really between him and I decided to gift him a handmade gift, which was floral frame for our future wedding photo to put on the counter. He said his parents won't be happy and will think I'm being cheap. He offered to get a pair of expensive Nike shoes, and all I had to do was act like I got it for him in front of his parents to get them off our back. I refused and said this is my gift and I won't pretend. At the party, and when he was opening gifts, I found out that he opened some box and pulled out Nike shoes and acted thrilled while thanking me for getting them for him. I was confused. I said this wasn't my gift and started looking for it among the other gifts. I asked where they put the floral frame and he acted dumb. I got so mad, I told him in front of his parents that he shouldn't have lied about what I originally gifted him, and that if he was ashamed of it, then I'll be keeping it. His family and friends were staring silently. His mom tried to follow me outside, but I got into an Uber and left. He texted me and was livid, saying that he was just trying to protect me from his family's criticism about the handmade gift I was planning to give him, and said I could have played along and got this over with. Instead, I exposed him when he was just trying to get his family to understand that I'm not being cheap. I went to stay with a friend and haven't spoken to him yet after this. I did tell him about how his family's behaving, and he agrees that they can be a bit shallow sometimes, but he also said he's nothing without them and cannot be arguing with them after all they've done for him. I feel like I disrupted his birthday with how I reacted when I could have waited another time and just swallowed this pill. I think we can probably all agree that the boyfriend/the family were being jerks in this, but would you go and say that OP was being a jerk here too? Whether it's their gift being a photo frame intended for their future wedding photo, which isn't really a gift for him necessarily, or making a really big stink about it in front of everybody when it could have been resolved in private. Was OP also a jerk here? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Our next story is from Yogan Country Lad. Am I the jerk for being petty and unable to forgive my parents for loving my brother more? Growing up, I could feel my parents' favoritism towards my older brother. He always got away with everything. Got better presents on his birthday, while they punished me for every little thing I did and told me off harshly for it. Then they sent him to university. When I graduated, they told me they couldn't afford both kids going to university. I was heartbroken, but whatever. It's not his fault they loved him more, but I grew to resent him more and more. I moved out of the house, took various jobs to pay for uni myself. Fast forward to many years later, now I have a much better job and get paid a lot more. He dropped out of uni because of his drinking habit and had no choice but to find a job. I tried to buy my parents' love, sending them on expensive vacations, buying them stuff, etc. But still, they loved him more. Always bragged about how successful he really was. Then the pandemic happened and he lost his job and was forced to move back in with them. Now, my parents always whine to me how hard it is for them, how disappointed they are in him, and they expect me to help pay the bills for grocery, gas, etc. And I did help, but not before reminding them how they've been treating me like crap for so many years and breaking my heart each time. They tried to deny it, so I reminded them of all the times they clearly showed favoritism towards my brother, and they're all puckered up at both ends. Last Christmas, I decided to not come home, and they asked me why. I told them they didn't need me there. Their golden child, the one they've been showering with love for years, is there with them. Why would they want me there anyway? And I also told them to tell their lovely son to get a job ASAP since I won't be paying all of his bills myself forever. Now, each time we talk and my brother's mentioned, I always refer to him as your favorite son, which upsets them and they still try to deny instead of apologizing. Honestly, all they have to do is say that one freaking stupid little word, sorry, and I'll forgive them. But no, they don't like me calling them out on their BS. These days when we speak on the phone, they whine and I go like, oh, so the favorite son who got better clothes, whose college tuitions were paid for, etc., still hasn't got a job? They told me I was being petty as freak and should just forgive and forget and stop acting like a child. Am I the jerk? It sure would make things so easy for them if OP was willing to forgive and forget all the ways they treated them lesser than their brother growing up. But it doesn't just work like that. They don't just make it easy on you like that. They don't just go, you know what, you're right. I know I was treated clearly as number 2 my entire childhood, but I'm gonna forgive and forget and get over it. We can be a lovely family again, and I'll even pay all your bills. Doesn't work like that. OP's definitely not a jerk. This next story is from user 345433. Am I the jerk for yelling at my husband that my cancer isn't a choice? Ever since I, female 31, got diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, months ago, my husband had to come home from his business day that lasted for nearly 8 months. He canceled his contract with the company and got replaced. He drives me to the hospital and takes care of my medication, and I'm so grateful for that. But he developed this habit of blaming my condition for every little thing. He'd make comments like, because of your cancer, now I had to drive in the middle of the night to look for medicine, and because of your cancer, I had to pull XYZ from my bank account to cover the bills, and because of your cancer, I haven't seen my family in a while. Or he'd say, if it wasn't for your cancer, I'd still have my contract, and if it wasn't for your cancer, we'd have to beg my dad for help. Basically blaming me for my condition. I grew tired of it, but I couldn't say anything, thinking he's saying those things out of frustration. But it's become too much and it's worn me down. The final straw was days ago. He was reheating dinner for himself. He hates to eat anything frozen, and put it on the table and started eating with disgust all over his face. I was grabbing a glass of water, so I entered the kitchen where he was staying. He saw me, then loudly said, "Who would have ever thought I'd settle for a frozen meal? Because of your cancer, now my health is declining because all I eat is frozen junk since you can't even cook." I snapped. I yelled at him saying my cancer isn't a choice, and that I'm not happy with the situation I'm in, and that his constant remarks about my condition have gone too far and needed to be stopped. He got mad and argued saying that he's in this too, and he's as affected as I am, and that I'm being incredibly unfair by yelling at him for just venting and letting his frustration out so he wouldn't have to bottle it up, then explode and leave everything. He threw his fork, then walked out. I sat down and cried a bit. I felt bad for how I yelled at him, but I was getting fed up of having to listen to him say all those things day and night on top of everything else I'm dealing with. First of all, I feel incredibly bad for OP, and I definitely think OP's not the jerk. I think it's great that the husband is helping out, but clearly those kinds of comments going on and just harping on it are just not necessary and can't be helpful at all. If they need to vent or let off some steam, they need to find a healthier way to do so. Our next story is from Throwaway Question 597. Am I the jerk telling my husband's nurse that she doesn't get to dictate who is/isn't allowed in my home? My husband, male 36, has been in the hospital for weeks. He just got discharged, but he needs home care. We got him a nurse to be able to monitor his medical devices. His nurse comes over to handle stuff like catheter and cannula insertions and medication intake. I've noticed she's been acting a bit rude and overstepping by trying to tell me when to enter my bedroom where my husband's staying, or when the kids get to come in. I already told her how I felt about her attitude, and she claims she was just doing her job, making sure my husband's getting enough rest. Yesterday, my parents came over to visit my husband since they'd been planning to come for a while, but couldn't find time. I opened the door for them and led them towards the bedroom. The minute we walked in, the nurse started redirecting us outside. I was confused and I asked what the freak she was doing, and she told me she was in the middle of removing my husband's catheter and this wasn't a time for a visit. I nearly laughed, but she forced us out and shut the door. I was fuming. I had my parents go into the living room, then came back and started arguing with her. She told me that my husband was in a vulnerable state and needed privacy, and she, as his nurse, simply provided it to him and had my visitors go wait outside. I told her this is my home, my bedroom, and those were my parents coming over to see my husband and check in on him, so they were his visitors as well. She told me it wasn't the right time for a visit, but I told her that she's in my home and she was overstepping by trying to dictate who is and who isn't allowed in to see my husband. I told her I'd report her for this attitude, and she kept saying that she was just trying to do her job and told me to go ask my husband about how he felt about having people see him in such state. I asked her to leave, and then after my parents were done with their visit, I tried to talk to my husband. He told me he did feel like his privacy was violated and that I was being too harsh on the nurse. I told him that my parents were worried sick and wanted to see him. He said this wasn't the right time and basically backed the nurse up. We got into an argument over this, and then he told me to let it go and let the nurse do her job, but I said that she keeps acting aggressively and like I was some outsider in my own home. Am I the jerk in this situation, or is she really overstepping? I think OP is the jerk in this situation simply because they went and asked their husband how they felt, and their husband basically echoed that the nurse is right, that they agree with the nurse, and that they prefer the nurse handling those kinds of situations. Obviously, OP kind of has a stick up their butt about it being in their home, therefore they feel like they should be able to do basically whatever they want. But like the nurse said, they're just trying to do their job and do it ethically and in the best interest of the patient. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Each one has awesome stories like our next one from Interesting Can 4785. Am I the jerk for telling our parents my brother's getting married? My brother got kicked out when he was 14, a freshman in high school. He was going around telling people he was kicked out because he was gay, but that's not true. We knew he was gay, our dad was a pastor, so he told my brother to keep it a secret at least until he graduates. My brother just had to tell his friend though. I tried to help him and be there for him, but there was only so much I could do. My parents financially supported me, so I couldn't go against their wishes. My brother, now 24, reached out to me. We've been communicating every few months, but he told me he was getting married. I went to dinner at their house. I thought it would be just the three of us, but it was a dinner with his friends and his friends' parents. The friends' parents are the ones he stayed with when he was kicked out, and they seem to think that makes them his family. I asked brother if our parents knew about his engagement, and he told me that they didn't. He doesn't want a relationship with them, and he doesn't want them at the wedding. I told him he was being childish. He needs to get over it and forgive them. The only reason they never let him come home is because he was crap-talking them around town. He has a chance to show them that he's the bigger person now and to apologize. I went home after he wouldn't listen, and I told our parents everything. I gave them his number. Apparently they called and tried to talk to him. He hung up and blocked them, then called me to scream at me for giving them his info. He told me I was a jerk and uninvited to his wedding. Am I the jerk, or was he just overreacting? I think OP is pretty clearly the jerk. I don't think OP understands just how impactful it would be getting kicked out of your house at 14. Imagine being 14 years old, a freshman in high school, and trying to just figure out where you can crash for the night. You're gonna just turn around and forgive those parents and be the bigger man and say, "Hey, mom and dad, forget what you did to me at 14 years old. Come on over to my wedding. Let's rekindle this relationship." It seemed pretty darn fractured and almost unrepairable. And when OP looked at all those broken, shattered pieces of that relationship, OP took a sledgehammer to them, hoping that that would somehow fix it. Our next story is from GoldSun777. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that if he wants my mother-in-law in the delivery room, then he can't be in there either? For context, I, 34-year-old female, am currently about 6 months pregnant. I'm pregnant with me and my husband's second child. Me and my mother-in-law honestly have a pretty bitter relationship. She doesn't approve of me or my family background. When I was having my first child, my husband had asked me if I'd considered letting my mother-in-law be in the delivery room. I told him absolutely not, and afterwards, he never really brought it up. I ended up having my husband and my mother there with me as support. Me and my husband are now discussing about who I want in the delivery room, and I told him I was fine with the same arrangement I had last time. My husband was clearly not happy about the decision, as I could clearly hear him mumbling something under his breath. I asked him if he had a problem with the arrangement. He actually spoke and claimed he did. He stated it was massively unfair that I would allow my mother in the delivery room, but not his. He mentioned that since I got to choose who was in the delivery room last time, he should get to choose who gets to be inside the room this time. I told him he was insane if he thought I would let his mother see me in extreme pain. It would be an incredibly uncomfortable situation. He was incredibly upset and left the house. I've been trying his friends to see if they've seen him recently, but without any luck. I contacted my mother-in-law, but she said she had absolutely no idea that my husband wanted her in the delivery room in the first place, and that she hadn't heard from him in a while. I'm honestly kind of freaking out both from stress and guilt. I'm worried that my husband isn't okay, but I also can't help but feel guilty that I drove him away. I don't know if I should stay with my current decision anymore. Please tell me, Reddit, am I the jerk? I think OP is definitely not the jerk. And frankly, the person who gets to decide who's in the delivery room should always be the person actually delivering said baby. Not only from a comfort thing, but just from a privacy thing. I mean, let's be blunt, you're there, you're up in the stirrups, there's a lot going on, it's not the prettiest of sights to see anybody in, necessarily. So I would think it's more than fair that whoever is in that delivery room is somebody that person in the stirrups chose to be there. Actually, to be honest, I don't know if they use stirrups or not, but either way, my point still stands. Our next story is from Technician Do5587. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend that it's weird that she says, "I love you" to her brother? I'm 26-year-old male. My girlfriend, 24-year-old female, has a brother, 19-year-old male, who goes to college only about an hour from where we live. He sometimes visits my girlfriend, and whenever he leaves from the visit, my girlfriend says that she loves him, and he usually returns a thumbs up, which is kinda funny. But I think it shows he's a bit weirded out as well by her saying she loves him. I understand "I love you" to your parents or kids, but it feels weird to say it to a sibling, since while I do love my brother, never in a million years would I say that to him. I told my girlfriend this, and she seemed kind of weirded out by what I said. She said that there was no problem with what she says, and that I was the one being weird. I think OP is the jerk in this situation. I think "I love you" is not a weird thing to say to anybody, granted your relationship is like that. I have guy friends that I say "I love you" to after we're done hanging out. And I've heard plenty of older, gruff gentlemen say to their friends, "Alright, love you, brother." So I think if you can say that to your friends, I think your own sibling you can especially say "I love you." Now, if they say "I love you" with a spank on the butt, then yeah, you might have a problem there. Our next story is from NoSource6835. Am I the jerk for refusing to watch Cousins for free at Easter dinner so adults can have a break? I, 16-year-old female, am the eldest cousin. Parents had me young. All 6 of my cousins are under 10 years old. 5-year-old male twins, 3-year-old girl, 8-year-old boy, 6-year-old girl, and 4-year-old boy. The adults wanted me to keep the kids entertained the whole time so they could socialize. I asked for money for babysitting, and everyone got pissed with me. My mother said I was rude because the parents deserved a break, and I should help because I'm family. But I really don't think it's my responsibility, and I don't even like kids that much. They decided it'd be good practice for when I have kids, but I don't think I even want them. But of course, my 14-year-old brother didn't have to do anything. I guess because he's a boy, he's off the hook with childcare? Am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk, and to be honest, I feel like most of us in that position would not want to be doing that babysitting duty. Imagine going to a family event and you're being told, "Hey, could you just watch all the kids for us?" Sure would be nice for all those parents, wouldn't it? This next story is brought to us from Just a Throwaway 72. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she needs to get her priorities in check? I've, 49-year-old female, lived next door to our current neighbors for about 3 years. They're nice people, and my husband and I are both friendly with them. They have 3 kids, a boy, L a boy, and E a female. L and E are around my daughter, H's age, 21, and they both became good friends with her, so we know them quite well. But A had moved out for college by the time we moved to the street, so we didn't really get to meet him until about a year ago. I'd say A is 24 or 25 years old. During that time, A became good friends with my daughter, and they kept in touch. A few months ago, my daughter mentioned that A had invited her to a prestigious piano concert he was a part of. She seemed excited to attend. She plays the piano too, but more as a hobby, and obviously we had no problem with it. She's mature enough to make her own decisions. The problems arose a couple of weeks after that. A very close family friend of ours invited us to their son's wedding and insisted all three of us attend. H had no issue until she realized the wedding was the same day as A's piano concert. H told us that she was going to attend A's concert and unfortunately would not be able to attend the wedding. Her dad was okay with it, but I insisted that she had to attend the wedding as that family is very close to us, much closer than A's family. She kept refusing and said that she herself is much closer to A than the person getting married, and she'd already told A she'd be attending. I compromised and said that she can go to the wedding during the day and then leave for the concert later, but she said no because by the time the wedding finished and she drove to the concert, it'd pretty much be over. We ended up RSVPing just for the two of us. Well, the wedding and concert day was recently, and my daughter went to A's concert. My husband and I went to the wedding, and my friend kept saying how sad it was that H doesn't find time for us anymore. I was embarrassed but kept my cool. The next day, I told H that she embarrassed us by not attending the wedding of a longtime friend and someone she's known for years. H got defensive and said that for her, attending the concert was a priority, and it was just unfortunate that they both fell on the same day. To which I replied that she needs to get her priorities in check and realize that a decades-long friend is a lot more important than some random guy's concert. She stormed out of the house and stayed the night with a friend. She came back later but is refusing to speak to me. My husband's saying I went too far, but while my words might have been a bit harsh, I think it was an important lesson for her. Am I the jerk? I think OP is the jerk because the daughter has their own priorities. Very clearly they stated that they prioritized this concert over the wedding. They're closer to A than they are to the longtime friend. They'd already made that commitment before the wedding was realized to them, and frankly, 21 years old, it's their choice. You can feel all moody and down in your feelings that they didn't renege on the piano concert and go to the wedding instead, but they had every right to choose where they wanted to go and when. Our next story is from Maisie1233. Am I the jerk for telling my counselor she failed at her job because she sided with my bully? So I, female, 18, had to surgically remove my eye a short while ago, and I'm still wearing an eye patch. I worked up the courage to go to prom, and I was super scared of being bullied by this one boy, Mike, who has always been a jerk to me. Well, it happened. He constantly came over and made really mean comments about my eye, and also related to my boyfriend, Jacob. He wasn't there because caretaker responsibilities. The last thing he said was mockingly, "Aw, did Jacob's big nose poke your eye out?" After that, I just lost it and started crying. The guidance counselor took me to her office and tried to calm me down. They also brought my friends there for a few minutes to avoid escalation. I demanded that Mike be removed from the event because he was being a bully. My counselor tried calling his parents but couldn't reach them and told me that since Mike's not 18 yet, they can't remove him from the event without an adult. She then told me that since I'm 18, if I don't feel comfortable staying there with him, I was free to leave and she would even call me an Uber if I wanted to. I was furious that she suggested I leave to make the bully more comfortable, while I did nothing wrong and Mike's the one who should be forced to leave. The no leaving if anyone's below 18 rule also makes no sense because Mike's house is across the street. She then gave me the "I don't make the rules" crap, and I told her that if she doesn't have what it takes to protect her students, she's a failure at her job and should quit in favor of someone who can. I talked about this with my boyfriend, and while he did have a few choice words for Mike, he told me that while he understands my frustration and my response at the moment, he thinks the counselor was not at fault. I'm very open to apologizing to her if I see that other objective people also believe the same thing my boyfriend does. So, am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk in the situation because the way they feel is very valid, and honestly the rules, despite being the way they are, feel unfair, maybe not very well thought out. That said, it sounded like the counselor was trying to be helpful but also not break the rules. I mean, some bully like Mike is probably going to make a stink about getting kicked out, and if it legitimately breaks a rule, that counselor probably could lose their job, or at least get in some kind of trouble. The counselor probably could have taken them to some office or something though, right? I felt like there were probably more options there and they weren't capitalized on. Our next story is from Legal Actuator 4074. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-sister-in-law the reason my ex and I divorced? I, 37-year-old female, divorced my ex-husband, 38-year-old male, 9 years ago. We got married when we were both 19 after dating for 3 or so years. We ended up divorcing because in my mid-20s, I started putting on a lot of weight. I was really stressed from work and had poor mental health. I'd had a bad relationship with food basically my entire life and developed terrible BED. When I married my husband, I weighed about 120 pounds, but right before we divorced, I weighed 240. My husband sat me down after the first 40 or so and told me he was concerned about my health and said that if I kept gaining weight, he wouldn't be attracted to me anymore. Hearing this devastated me, but I decided to really try to lose weight. It didn't work though. If anything, trying to diet just made it worse, as I started feeling guilty eating at all, which led to more binging. We talked and decided divorce would be best. I don't have any regrets, nor do I hate him. I get where he was coming from. We didn't have kids, so the divorce was easy, and I haven't spoken to him in years. Now I weigh 220, am married, and have 2 kids. Recently I was at the mall and I ran into my ex-sister-in-law. It was the first time I've seen her in years. We always got along fairly well, so it was nice to see her. We chatted for a few minutes. At some point, she said something along the lines of, "I was always surprised that it ended between the two of you the way it did." I asked what she meant, and she said that my ex had told his side of the family that I had an affair, which obviously wasn't true. Admittedly, I was very upset. I didn't understand why he felt the need to portray me as a cheater instead of telling the truth, which even then isn't that bad. So I told her what really happened. My ex-sister-in-law seemed genuinely surprised and said she had no idea. I told her it was fine and that it didn't bother me much, but that I wished he would have told the truth from the start. I went home and didn't think much of it. To my shock, my ex-husband called upset. He asked why I told his sister that. I guess the truth had gone around most of his family and is even causing problems in his current marriage. I told him I was sorry that this was happening, but what I said was the truth. I honestly do feel really bad though. I don't talk to him or his family ever, and it would have basically zero impact on me if they remembered me as the adulterer ex for the rest of my life. I didn't realize that they would react so strongly to the truth though. Am I the jerk? Honestly, I see no way in which OP could be the jerk. There's no way OP could have known the ramifications for telling the truth. Like in the story, you can't underemphasize that. That was the truth that OP told. If somebody asks you something, you tell them the truth, and they go on and have some kind of personal fallout from that, can you even remotely be the jerk for that? And our final story of the day is by Throwaway Clerk 24638. Am I the jerk for calling the police on my coworker over a prank? I, 25-year-old female, just started this new job as a front desk clerk at a hotel. I work the overnight shift. I usually have a coworker, 30s male with me, but he never really spoke to me. A few nights ago was my first night alone. At around 2 a.m., I notice a person in the parking lot. You can see a lot from the front desk. The lighting in the lot is terrible, so you don't really see faces until they get close to the lobby door. Just standing there, not moving for about 5 to 10 minutes. I thought this was strange, and of course it creeped me out. After about 10 minutes of them standing there, they moved, I guess, to call the front desk, because he moved his hand to his ear and the phone rang. I picked up, and on the other end I just heard, "5 buried, none found," in a low voice, and then they hung up. At this point I was terrified, so I ran to the back room and called 911. I explained to the operator about what had been going on, and they sent a couple cops to the hotel. When they arrived, one cop was talking to the person outside, and the other one was at the front desk talking to me, telling me that the person outside was claiming that he also worked here. I was confused, but also admitted I hadn't seen the person's face, just the silhouette. At this point, the other officer and the person from the lot come in, and it turns out to be my coworker, and he was upset, saying he never would have pranked me if he knew I was going to call the police and try to get him arrested. I didn't go through with pressing charges, but I did tell my manager what happened the next morning. It's been a few days now, and I guess he told other coworkers what happened, and now no one's really speaking to me and giving me a bit of an attitude. I feel like I took it a bit too far with calling the police. Am I the jerk? OP is definitely not the jerk. How is anyone going to react in that situation when they don't know who's standing out there? Some creepy person standing still in the parking lot for 10 minutes, calling and then saying, 5 buried, none found. What the heck is any reasonable person going to do? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.